Hello and welcome. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and you're watching Business Today Television. Joining me on the show today is Mr. R.C. Bhargava, the chairman of India's largest automaker, Maruti Suzuki. Just a day after the company has announced a substantial increase in its investment plans in India. But before I head to Mr. Bhargav, I want to play out very quickly for you viewers what Toshihiro Suzuki, the president of Suzuki Motors, had to say at the Vibrant Gujarat summit just a day ago.
By the end of February, the first battery electric vehicle from Suzuki Group will be rolled out from Suzuki Motor Gujarat by the end of this year. We plan to sell this model not only in India, but also export to Japan and European countries. Secondly, to expand our VEV production in future, Suzuki Group will invest 3,200 crore rupees in Suzuki Motor Gujarat to add a new fourth production line, which can produce 2.5 lakh units per year. This will increase the annual production capacity of Suzuki Motor Gujarat from the current 7.5 lakh to 1 million units. Thirdly, we will invest 35,000 crore rupees for the construction of a second car plant in Gujarat.
Mr. Bhargav, we just played out for our viewers what Toshihiro Suzuki had to say. I'm going to ask you to expand on the expansion plans. It's 2024. And what are the plans that you've just announced? Please detail it for our viewers.
Siddharth, as you know, we had earlier announced that by 2031, we will increase our total manufacturing capacity to 4 million units a year and achieve an export of between 750 and 800,000 cars a year from the current about 260,000. As a part of this overall program of expanding capacity to 4 million from the present roughly 2.2 million, we have started work in Haryana already at the Kharkhoda site. We needed another 1 million units a year capacity somewhere. We have decided that Gujarat is a preferred state for further expansion of capacity. Gujarat is preferred because we already have 750,000 capacity in that state, which, as Mr. Suzuki announced, will now go up to 1 million. In addition, we want to increase capacity further in the state because the vendor base which has been built in that state is today not at its optimum level. It's only catering to a production of 750,000 cars a year. We believe that if we can take this 750 to 2 million cars a year, we will get significant value in terms of economies of scale and therefore lower costs of production of cars. In addition, by having production increases in Gujarat, we will avoid transportation costs and possible transportation for the export car because already the production in Gujarat is being exported through a port in Gujarat itself. And therefore having further increases in production in proximity to the port is a clear value to us. So we have then we have discussed with Gujarat government, they are aware that we prefer the state over everybody else. And the only thing remains is to find an appropriate plot of land where we can work and move quickly to complete the project by the target date of 28-29.
Mr. Bhargav, by when do you think the process of identifying a suitable location is going to be completed?
We are in a great hurry to find the land. The Gujarat government appreciates the need for expediting this whole process of selecting and transferring the land to us because we do want to get this production going as quickly as possible. The EV production will happen in Gujarat at present. Firstly, through this new line which is being set up, which will be devoted to EVs. But we need more EV capacity because by 2031, we believe the requirements of EV from Maruti will be 500,000 or more, depending on how the market goes. And therefore, to meet all these requirements, we really are now at the end of our schedule for starting production. And we hope that in a couple of months, we will have this matter sorted out.
Okay. Mr. Bhargav, 2 points to follow up from your remarks so far. I want you to expand on the export strategy. As I understand from the numbers that you shared, you are going to move from over 200,000 to over 800,000. Roughly 1/5 of your total production capacity will be exported by 2030-31. What will be the product mix in terms of the exports that you anticipate?
The bulk of the cars will remain ICE cars. But as was announced by Mr. Suzuki, we will be exporting cars initially to Europe and to Japan. The numbers to Europe will be much larger. Japan would be comparatively smaller compared to Europe. And the rest will be sold in India. This will enable us to not only meet the capacities in India in an economical manner, because the total volume will become much larger than what would be possible if we were catering only to the Indian market. Exactly what share of this total 800,000 exports would be EVs and how much would be ICE cars is a little difficult to say, because the markets to which we are exporting also are not highly developed countries. And there also affordability, charging infrastructure, and all these factors come into play. And therefore, I think that it would probably be reasonable, but this is just a guess, that of the total exports, the component which is EVs would be maybe 15 to 20%.
Okay, 15 to 20% of total exports to be EVs.
It's just an estimate, but we have to see how actually the markets go.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. 6 to 7 years from now, user consumption behavior and trends are likely to change. But on that note, this debate on ICE engines and EVs, I want to hear your latest thoughts now that we are in 2024 about what do you expect in terms of the overall car market in India, the ICE versus EV debate. Do you see an inflection point anytime soon?
See, I believe that the purpose of all these exercises is to reduce the carbon footprint. And I believe that in the Indian environment and given the Indian resources and the Indian nature of the Indian buyer, we will need a mix of different technologies to achieve this purpose. This factor has been said earlier, and I believe that one of the major areas which we need to work on, and I mean the nation, is to develop the potential of our biofuels. Biofuels in India have perhaps the largest potential of any country in the world, because our cattle population is the maximum, our agricultural waste in a sense is very high. A lot of this agricultural waste today is burned, causing other problems for the environment. all of which can be avoided if we use these bio waste and animal waste to generate fuel. The gas generated is very similar to CNG. It's totally usable in the cars with the existing infrastructure which is already in place in terms of pipelines and filling stations and such things. The customer is used to using CNG. But the difference from CNG and biogas is the biogas is totally renewable and clean. And therefore, I think this is one area which we'll have to get into, whether it's biogas or whether it's ethanol, both have virtually the same properties in terms of environment. We also have to make sure that a big jump towards EVs is only made when we are also sure that our electricity generation will have a larger component of clean energy and a smaller component of coal-fired energy. Because if we are talking of the carbon footprint of the country, then we have to take into account the damage which is being done by burning coal to generate more and more power. Today, as you're aware, Siddharth, we are increasing our coal production, we are increasing our generation based on coal. So this situation has to change and will change because we are putting in a lot of efforts to create the clean energy like solar energy and wind energy. So I believe that along with the biofuels and in the intermediate period using hybrid technology will all have their role to play, let's say, in the next decade.
Therefore, would there be a clear winner? Will ICE continue to sort of have the largest market share in the same time frame of a decade that you just mentioned?
If we are talking of the next decade, I believe in this decade, the contribution of ICE cars will include hybrids, by the way, will be larger than the contribution of the EV cars. If the biofuel generation problem is solved and this moves faster in the country, then the biofuels plus EVs could constitute 50% or more of the total vehicles produced.
Mr. Bhargav, many of our viewers will appreciate the fact that you are amongst the original Make in India giants, and there is perhaps no one that comes close to Maruti Suzuki in terms of setting absolutely new benchmarks every time in terms of manufacturing. The point that I want to ask you is that some people anecdotally seem to prefer hybrid. I also get the sense from some other manufacturers, including another Japanese manufacturer, that hybrid may ultimately be the best solution given some of the downsides that we see in EVs. Would you share that view, sir?
I don't believe that hybrids are the long-term solution because hybrids still use oil-based fuels. And we want to eliminate all oil-based fuel in the country. We should, if we want to run a much larger proportion of cars in India, because hybrids do increase the fuel efficiency of cars by 30% or more than 30%. And that's a big gain. So I think hybrid technology is there to stay, but not in the conventional sense. I would like hybrid technology to be suitable for use in other vehicles running on biofuels.
All right. Mr. Bhargav, on the question of EVs, and clearly you have substantial plans in this regard, but what would you say needs to be done as far as regulatory standards or adoption standards are concerned? Because we see different rules. For example, somebody buys a EV car and there are rules in that housing society or apartment that you can't park it in a basement because of fears of fire. Then there are issues with regard to charging infrastructure, common area being utilized for all of this. Is that becoming a stumbling point, and should more not be done given that we talk about EVs all the time, sir?
The battery technology is still in the process of reaching, what should say, higher levels of safety and performance. I've been reading now that Toyota is developing solid state batteries. Solid state batteries will eliminate, I believe, almost completely any kind of fire risk. And they will be lighter, they'll be hopefully cheaper. There may be some other developments also in battery technology which are in the process somewhere, which uses other chemistry than just the lithium ion chemistry. So it's too early, Siddharth, to make any kind of prediction that we have reached a kind of plateau in terms of technology as far as EV cars. And EV car technology really means battery technology. That I think that's still work in progress. We have to wait and see what technology changes happen. And for that reason, I think there is a lot of thought in the industry that making firm commitments on large scale to any existing technology is not necessarily the wisest thing to do. And we should maintain some amount of flexibility in our operations. For that reason, I think Maruti also delayed its EV introduction, and we still are keeping our options open to decide how to go forward because we want to adjust to changes in technology.
And absolutely, and for businesses such as yours, where plans are drawn up not for months but for many years, this is extremely important. I understand from you, and I agree with your remarks related to that topic of whether the future will be an all-electric one when it comes to mobility. But in India, and you will know the best answer, frankly, Mr. Bhargav, to this because you've been a price champion. The price factor also is a significant one. We are one of the most price sensitive markets. What's your sense about EV pricing and likely strategy that your company may adopt for pricing its EV products?
Whatever pricing we adopt, we can't adopt a pricing formula which is leading to losses to the company. The pricing has to give us some sort of reasonable profit, otherwise it's not a sustainable business. No company can sustain itself merely because the customer can't afford more expensive cars, then you have to stop making that kind of a product. I believe that in India, over the next few years, if we continue to grow at 7, 8, 9% a year, gradually the affordability factor for a larger and larger share of the population will keep increasing. And as the affordability factor increases, the ability to buy more sophisticated products will increase. At the same time, the becoming dominant in India over the next at least 2 decades. Because till we reach the stage of becoming a developed country with much higher levels of income at all across the board, we cannot do what the West is doing in terms of affording cars.
Diesel cars, while being more expensive than the same spec, same feature car, would sell because of mileage. Mileage ज़्यादा देती है, and that was the reason. Diesel, and I remember your view on diesel cars from almost 10 years ago. The reason I asked you about EVs was that, do you see a point where technology developments and other issues getting sorted out would make EVs as in terms of prices like petrol cars?
It can happen. I mean, technology is such a game changer that for anybody to take a view that technology cannot bring down costs to a petrol level would be foolish. But there are other factors which also apply, which relate to the charging infrastructure. And I'm not talking of public charging structure. A lot of people in India do not have in their places of stay the ability to either park their car in the house or therefore to charge the car at night. Now, for anybody who doesn't have a fixed place for parking his car and for charging the car, use of an electric vehicle poses various challenges. How do you charge the car? You can't charge it at night because you don't have a parking place. You can't charge it in the day because you're using the car. It can only change if, like in the solid state battery, charging time comes down to 10 minutes or so. Then the whole game changes.
Absolutely. And while we are speaking, a colleague has added a question saying, along with charging, please ask Mr. Bhargava about range anxiety, because this is one of the biggest roadblocks that my colleague says is becoming an issue. How long will it take before range anxiety is no longer an issue, sir?
Again, solid state batteries increase the range substantially. And the range question, Siddharth, comes in really only for people who travel a long distance. It's not really an issue for people who are driving the cars in the city, because even with today's technology, the range of a car is at least 200 kilometers or more. And I don't think that other than taxi owners and such things, very many people drive their cars within the city for more than 200 kilometers in a day. So the bulk of the customers really should not have a range anxiety unless they are in the habit of going out of the city. If they go out of the city, certainly you need public charging stations everywhere.
Absolutely, that's a fair point. And even in a large NCR like Delhi, you're absolutely right. 125 kilometers would be at two extreme ends of the NCR for day trips.
And 200 kilometers is a common range for cars today.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. As we wind down our conversation, a couple of questions, Mr. Bhargav. One really is to do with pricing. We have seen over the last several quarters, couple of years, post-COVID pricing that has been adopted by the entire industry and your company as well. Cost pressures, inflation that has taken a bite in certain segments. What's your sense about price pressures for automakers like yours in 2024?
I don't see much of a price pressure in 2024. You know, the problems of lower output because of component shortages, I mean the semiconductors, I don't think it's going to come in 2024. And I believe that in 2024, we will be able to produce without any issues on the component supply side. I don't see so far anything happening which will increase raw material prices substantially. We've seen the worst of things happening. We've seen the Ukraine war happening. We've seen now this Mediterranean the problems of shipping and pirates and
Maruti, what's the kind of guiding mandate that you may adopt for product pricing this year, sir?
We have, I think, said we are making very nominal price increases this month. I'm not sure if they've been made or they're about to be made. But those price increases will be nominal. I don't think there'll be any price increase for small cars. The increases even for the other cars will not be significant. They will be, I think, small increases to the extent they take place. I don't think we need large increases in prices at all.
Okay. Mr. Bhargava, one of the final points, we have seen a trend towards premiumization post-COVID in not just auto, but actually across many sectors of the economy, housing, for example. Your company is, they brought the small car culture to India. What is the future of the small car vis-a-vis other consumption trends likely to be this year and beyond?
Siddharth, I believe that India has a latent demand for small cars. I'm saying this because a country which has, 150 million or more two-wheeler owners cannot last forever, especially as the quality of life improves if people on the basis of families traveling on scooters. It has to change. And therefore, the small car market has to be there. Low cost cars have to be there to meet the needs of people who are scooter owners. And my belief is that the downturn in small cars has happened because proportionately the price of small cars went up much faster than the price of bigger cars because the cost of meeting BS6 norms and of emission norms is roughly the same for bigger and smaller cars. The impact of smaller cars becomes proportionately much higher. I believe that with incomes rising, maybe another 2 years from today, the affordability of cars will again become something which the lower income people can manage, and the small car market will start reviving, I believe, by the end of 2025 or maybe in 26.
Another question that's come, and you've given us a headline on small car revival, which is that one was used to waiting lists for train tickets, and there was a time there was no waiting list for cars. Given what has happened in the last couple of years, at least for the Maruti portfolio, Mr. Bhargav, what would you say to our viewers who are already in the line or planning to purchase a Maruti product? What kind of waiting list should they be prepared for?
There shouldn't be a waiting list, and I think it's going down substantially. It's already come down compared to what it was at the beginning of the year. By the end of 23, the waiting list was caused by two factors. One was the semiconductor situation. It was not uniform across all models. It varied from model to model. The second factor was that the sharp drop in the small car market left Maruti with substantial capacities which are not fully utilized in the small car production areas and lesser capacities for the demand for the bigger cars because the whole market changed proportionately. And we have over this period of time been able to adjust our production capacities, and today our production capabilities are much more in line with what the market demand is than what was the situation in the past 2 years, 3 years. And I think that will ensure that the waiting time doesn't happen. The component shortages are also getting sorted out. Partly the semiconductor business, as I said, is now much more favorable. And in some areas, especially CNG, the demand for CNG cars went up much faster, and the component manufacturers were unable to meet the demand. So a large part of the waiting list is the CNG cars. But all of this, I believe, will become much, much better in 24.
Mr. Bhargav, thank you very much for sharing all those details, including several key points in terms of consumer trends, what is likely to happen in 2024, and the very, very detailed rationale and reason that you gave as regards the electric vehicle market in India. As always, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Siddharth. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being with India today.
Thank you very much, sir. And with that, it's a wrap on this conversation, special conversation with R.C. Bhargav, the chairman of Maruti Suzuki India Limited. We'll be back with more. Until then, goodbye.